Good morning, everyone. It's shockingly February already, and the Churchill Trust is delighted to welcome you to this information session designed to give you some information for our 2026 fellowship round. My name is Dacey, and I am so lucky to be the CEO of the Churchill Trust, and I am coming to you and presenting from Canberra, which is beautiful Ngunnawal and Ngambri country. I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this land and the lands from wherever you may be dialing in from around Australia. This session is going to be presented by myself and Judy Ryan, who is a real live, walking, talking, breathing Churchill Fellow. And together, Judy and I are going to try and give you as much information as we can to help you think about applying and all of the tips and tricks that we think will be useful to you. We already have quite a bit of information on our website in our FAQs, and we also have a lovely series of animations that are designed to break down the fellowship journey. So if you haven't had a chance to look at those, I'd really encourage you to do that. Notwithstanding that, we will send you links to both of those after the session in an email. And if you have questions during the session, there's a Q&A that you can pop questions into. But hopefully I'm going to do a couple of slides, and then Judy's going to take you through some of the things that she learned on her journey. And so hopefully we'll cover off a lot of the things that you're interested in. We'll also have this session recorded, and it'll be on our YouTube channel, as will a number of other information sessions, and we'll be sharing those recordings. There is closed captioning available. Just enable it on your device. I'm reliably informed there's about a 7-second delay from when we're talking to when the closed captioning comes up. We do try and focus in these sessions, because there are a number of people online, on the questions that we think are most broadly applicable. However, like life, everyone has their own personal circumstances. And if you have something that might be a little more niche or a little more personal to your circumstances and we don't cover it off in this session, please don't worry. You can get in touch with us after the session and we can try and give you a bit more tailored information. We're going to run exactly to 1 hour. I know many of you are logging in from lunchtimes, etc. So I will absolutely wrap us up at the end of this hour. I reckon we just get going. So I'm going to pull up the first slide, and I guess a little bit about us. We have a really rich 60-year plus history, and we're very proud of that. Churchill believed deeply in the power of public service, and the capacity of individuals is a really meaningful thing. The funding from the program came from donors, basically everyday Australians who generously donated money to make this fellowship a reality. And those donors believed in the power of change as well, and we're really grateful to those. And so we manage our funding really carefully in recognition that it was everyday Australians who made this happen. What's fellowship? We think it's a unique and life-changing opportunity that is open to Australians and permanent residents from all backgrounds. It's not an academic scholarship and it's not a funding grant. It's about your vision and your journey of learning and contribution. We really, really don't want your application to be a thesis. And to help show you that, we've got a draft application on the guideline on the website as a bit of a guide. I'm reliably informed that sticking to the word limit is one of the very hard things. And I've also been told that word limit is different to a character limit. So a character limit includes every full stop, comma, space. Based on everything I saw last year, we really encourage you to do it in Word, get that character count, and then dump it into the portal when you're ready. Fellows are travelling overseas for a minimum of 4 weeks and a maximum 8 weeks as part of their fellowship to learn new skills, observe best practices, build networks that benefit their industry or their community back in Australia. And that's kind of the key thing, is the travel overseas and that you bring back that knowledge. And I'm sure Judy will have a lot of really interesting things to talk about that. There is no guidance from us on topics. We will do everything from boat builders to ballet dancers to biochemists to botanists. And we do other numbered letters besides B. But it's just about, what are you interested in? and what's your vision and what's your passion and what change do you want to make? And I guess importantly, when you come back, you become part of the Churchill Fellowship ecosystem and the alumni, and there's lots of opportunity in that as well. And you would join about 4,900 other Australians who have also done this. So that's kind of it. I will just say we sometimes get questions about, do I have to travel overseas? And the answer is yes. Yes, you do. So how do you apply for a fellowship? So to be eligible, you have to be an Australian citizen or permanent resident. You have to be 18 years or older, and there is no upper age limit. That is really the only eligibility criteria. We do encourage people of all ages to have a go. In terms of where you live and where you might be applying from, if you have a disability or you have some special set of circumstances or you live in regional and very remote Australia, we do have options around specific tailored support for you. But the vast majority of people will fall into our kind of standard fellowship program. And if you've got questions about that, then by all means, pop them in that Q&A or bring us after the session and we can talk to you a bit. What sort of projects? It has to be an individual project. It cannot be a team project. The only exception to this is that we have a category called joint fellowships, which are specifically designed to support applications between an Indigenous person and a non-Indigenous person if that project is focused on First Nations issues. Projects have to be self-contained. They have to be able to demonstrate a benefit for the Australian community. And really, it's important to explain to the panel why you have to go overseas. What have you done? What have you explored? What have you exhausted in terms of knowledge and networks in Australia that makes us investing in you going offshore appropriate for the fellowship program? I'm going to talk a little bit about sponsors later in the session, so just put a place marker in that one. In terms of tips and tricks, these are really the holy grail. Why is it so important for you to do your project and why now? Some topics really capture a moment in time and we think that's really important. How will it help others and who are those people that it might help? And one of the questions I get a lot is, well, what's benefiting the Australian community? And the Australian community can be your local football club. It can be your city. It can be your state. It can be the whole of the country. You can change the world. But you need to be clear about who it's going to benefit and how it's going to benefit. In terms of an itinerary, we need it to be sensible. We need it to be clear. We need it to be achievable. People get very excited when drafting up their itinerary, and we really just ask people to think about what makes sense to them. And I know Judy's got some really great intel from how she built her itinerary and where she went and what she did. And really, last but not least, why you? What makes you the right person to deliver on this? I say this having sat on a lot of interviews. Imposter syndrome's real, but it doesn't help you in this instance, and you really got to back yourself in. And I will say, it's not only about your passion and commitment, but it's actually about your ability to do something with your passion and commitment, right? I can be passionately committed to all sorts of things, but you've got to be able to demonstrate to the panel in a really compelling way, what are you going to do with it? We are going to get to the Q&As that you're asking, but I am just going to cover up a couple of really quick ones that we get asked in almost every session. How much is a fellowship worth? And the average of the 2025 fellowship was $37,900. That is an average. Some are more, some are less, but I'm just trying to give you a sense of scale. And it covers all your travel, accommodation, meals, and other fees that we approve as part of your application. I will say to you, you can put a conference fee in there, but they are not particularly compelling. This is not about people going overseas to conference and network. If it makes sense as part of your program, then by all means, but don't make it the linchpin of your application. Another one we get is, do I need qualifications? The answer is absolutely not. A big part of the Churchill ethos is all walks of life, so no academic or tertiary qualifications are required. And I will just say, if you are interested in a sponsored fellowship, have a think about it, but don't get obsessed with it. You will be asked in the application to nominate any sponsored fellowships that you think might be of interest to you. And all of our sponsors and sponsored fellowships are on our website. They won't rule you in or out, and we can do some of that matching for people. So by all means, go and do your due diligence, see the sorts of projects that get up through them, see the sorts of people that we pick through them, but don't worry yourself unduly about finding a sponsor to tag yourself to. And I would say that's the same with the streams and the categories like health and medicine, because a lot of the projects that we do cross over. I'm going to stop talking now because I know Judy's got great stuff. The application dates are on the screen. 9 a.m, 27 February is go time, and 5 p.m, 30 April is close time. Based on last year, we would expect to get a significant number of applications that kind of last 48 hours. The team and I are genuinely here to try and help you, so please don't hesitate if you do have questions. We will be sending out those follow-up links. And now I'm going to hand over to Judy, who can talk to you about how she went getting to the stage of getting the happy phone call that she had been selected. Over to you, Judy.
Thank you, Christine, and welcome to everybody who's got an interest, obviously, in applying for a Churchill Fellowship. And I can only say what an experience that's been. And I'm just thrilled that we have so many online today. I'm just going to back in something that was said right at the beginning, and it was on your screen about a Churchill Fellowship, and that is applying for one, you have to be bold. You have to have courage, and you absolutely have to back yourself. You can't be a shrinking violet in this business because you are competing against 1,000 people when you put your application in. So you really have to have passion for what you believe in. And I haven't got a long time to talk, so I've put my talk into 6 categories. Passion for your project, the partners you'll need to help you get it up, the preparation for your application, the publication of your work when you've done it, the presentation when you've got back, which is a post-Churchill requirement. So I'm going to just very quickly tell you a little bit about my story. I'm in a city, Melbourne. I live in an area that had a lot of public drug use, mainly heroin. And 10 years ago in 2016, I decided that I could no longer tolerate human beings collapsing and dying in our streets. And I rallied the local community together to open a medically supervised injecting facility here in Melbourne. There is one in Sydney, but there was none anywhere else in Australia. So as a result of that, I decided, a few people said to me, Jude, that was great what you did. Why don't you apply for a Churchill? And this is in 2017. And I didn't really know much about it, but I thought, okay, I'll do that. So I applied first time for a Churchill Fellowship in 2017. And in a way, I'm really glad I did it because it really helped me think about what this Churchill fellowship offered, and was I really ready for it? And at the time, I thought I was, but in a way, fortunately, I was unsuccessful. And that was a good thing because it allowed me to live my life, work on my community public health issue that really I was very passionate about. And then 6 years later, in 2023, I applied again, and I was a completely different beast. I really knew what I wanted. I had great contacts. I had overseas connections, and it was a no-brainer really for me. So if you've got some uncertainty about applying for a Churchill, do it. It's a really great life experience, and it really helped me hone what I really needed to do. So you've got to be passionate. So I was invited to a conference, an international conference that was held in Melbourne by people who look at these drug issues. And I was invited to speak on a panel. And I said, well, I'm not going to the conference. And they said, oh, why aren't you going? And I said, well, I can't afford it. It was $800 or something to go to this conference. And I said, I'm a volunteer. I'm not an academic. And they said, well, what about if we allowed you in for free? And I said, yes, that'd be great. So I spoke on a panel about this issue with international experts. And afterwards, they all said, oh, Jude, next time you're in Paris, in Zurich, in New York, you must pop in. And I got the tram home, and on the tram, I thought, gee, how am I ever going to get to Paris and Zurich and Vancouver? And I thought, oh, the Churchill. So I got home and the first thing I did was look up the Churchill website, and I looked at my area of interest. Had anyone else ever done anything like what I wanted to do? And there was nothing there. So I thought, aha, I've got a point of difference. So then I started my application, and that it was an amazing experience because I mentioned before, I had the passion for my project. I had partners, I had people in the sector that knew what I was doing, absolutely supported me. I had contacts to put in my itinerary when I was forming my itinerary for the application. So I felt like I really had a foundation that was excellent. So you need your family to support you, maybe your work colleagues, other people in the community. Maybe you are a community-based volunteer. You need those people to support you. Key people, maybe a local MP who thinks what you've been doing is amazing, or a business person or whatever. So really think about those people that can back you in and support you. The next thing is preparation for the application. And as Christine said, there is a draft on the website. I would highly recommend that you have a look at that, because as Christine also said, one of the biggest issues is the word limit and the character limit. That is really one of the hardest things. So, but what that does is when you're asked a question, which could be, can you describe your project in 15 words or less? It really makes you hone the purpose of what you are doing. And so even though it's very frustrating, but it's a really, really important thing to do. And, what's the aim of your project in 15 words? Describe your project in 100 words. It's a really, really tough exercise, but very important to do because it helps you in your purpose. What's the purpose? What's my point of difference? So that was the full preparation. And you can do that before the application's open. So they open on the 27th of Feb. So that's, 3 weeks away. You can start now, today. Start getting some people together, thinking about what you're going to do. Have a look on the website to see if somebody else has done something like you. Have a look at the draft application. So when you're ready to sit down on the 27th of Feb, you've got all your information around you and you'll really enjoy it because it really helps you think, what am I doing? Am I being bold? Am I being courageous? And the most important thing too is, how can I improve life for Australians? Because ultimately, when you come back from your trip, you have to then publish what you've done. And once again, have a look at other people have done, because you'll be asked that in your application. How are you going to spread the word when you get back from your Churchill? Some people will use a lot of social media, which I used sporadically, but I was very targeted in my social media because I'm not a big social media user, but I knew I had to do that. And also everybody done a lot of written projects at the end, but I also wanted to do like a video or like a mini documentary. So I asked around for people to help me. How do I do that? How do I set myself up with a mic and all of that sort of thing? And so you sort of got to think of the big picture, and the application is a very important part of it. But how am I going to follow through with the actual itinerary and travelling? And then getting home and writing it up and then actually spreading the word, because ultimately that's what we all have to do. Is we've got to go out into our community and say, well, I've got a Churchill Fellowship on this, and how can I make a difference in this community for Australians? So they're the sort of the passion. You've got to have partners. You've got to do your preparation. You've got to think about publishing your report and presenting it broadly, putting yourself out there, doing some media and that sort of thing. So this is where I said before, you can't be a shrinking violet. You do have to back yourself. You do have to think, I'm actually an expert at this. And somebody once said that to me when I was applying for the Churchill, and he said, Jude, you are the only person, as I know, who's a resident, a volunteer who really is pushing for drug law reform. Because everybody else are experts and academics and politicians. And he said, you are now the Australian expert. And I went, oh my God, really? And it's true. I now get invited to speak with people about how do we manage this issue and what can we do better. And looking at the evidence that I gathered in Zurich and in Dublin and in New York and Paris and the contacts I met over there, I've still contact those people and say, hey, we've got this come up. Tell me what you're doing about that in Vancouver or whatever. So you make incredible contacts, and it's just, it opens your mind to what people know, and you don't know what you don't know until you do a Churchill Fellowship. I could talk forever about this. I'm happy to speak further, but I suppose Christine did mention about the itinerary. Yeah, 8 weeks, max 4 weeks at least. I went for 8 weeks. And look, it's exhausting. You really need to think clearly about going. I planned 7 days in each city, and we arrived on the Friday. I had Saturday, Sunday to get climatised. I'd go to all the places where I'd made appointments and have a look at the city. Did all my interviews on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I always had Thursday off, just for a bit of R&R, but also to help write up what I'd done during the week and gather photos and email everybody and thank them for seeing me. And also I had a free day in case I'd run into someone on Monday who said, hey, have you met this person? Oh, well, how about we set up a meeting for you on that day? So, and then Friday I'd travel again to the next city and repeat. And I did that over 8 weeks. And look, it's exhausting, but it is exhilarating. But I'd really recommend that you look after your food, you look after your laundry, get somewhere with laundry, and also somewhere where you can put your Churchill gear. And every night you get home from your interviews, you can write it down and type it up or whatever you want to do, and upload your photos so you've finished, you're organised, and then you can move on to the next city. So everybody will do it differently. That's just the way I rule. I did have my partner with me. He came. He's very good at laundry and cooking and all that sort of thing. He had to pay his own way, but I had the accommodation. So that worked for me. Everybody will do something different. But it's about you and what your dream is here and what can you do for Australia. It's such a powerful experience. Just do it. If you don't get it, it can be a blessing. It was for me not getting it first time, because by the time I applied for it a second time, I was all systems go. So happy to hand over to answer any questions. Yeah.
So Judy, I've seen a couple of questions come through in the chat, and you might have a look as well. One of the questions was, does it matter if your project touches on multiple streams? Yeah, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Pick which one you think's most applicable. But we'll do a lot of the sifting behind the scenes once all the applications come in, and we'll allocate it to kind of various subcommittees. So don't let that bother you. A couple of questions about, can I break my travel? The answer is no. You have to do it all in one hit. And partly that's us managing the money that we so carefully have had entrusted to us. So it's not a back and forth. You go and you do it. But we've got a fellowship liaison officer here who works with all the fellows, who kind of nuts their way through that before we leave. I will say we get some questions about, I got up but then I found someone in another country. And I say to people, think of it like this. You've just been through an incredibly rigorous, competitive selection process. And the panel has picked you because you said you were going to Costa Rica, Bolivia, and Chile, and Argentina. If you come back and then say, oh no, now I want to go to Moldova, Slovenia, Croatia, and Finland, and Russia, and, England and Norway, that's not what the panel signed off on. So it's not a free-for-all. The program integrity mandates so that, yes, there will be some latitude to change, but not wholesale changes like that. And also massively impacts the cost of fellowships. So that goes to Judy's point about having really thought about, where am I going? And I always kind of give people the advice, 70-30 rule in terms of understanding your itinerary. Maybe 80-20 would be better. The more specific it can be about who you're trying to meet and why you're trying to meet them and what your contacts are, I think the more compelling your case is. So the other one that Judy touched on was, do you travel with someone or not? And the trust is truly agnostic about that. If you take someone with you, you have to pay for them. And some people have said to me, I couldn't do it without my friend, helper, partner. And others are like, no, I couldn't wait to leave everyone behind and just be really selfish and enjoy this moment in my life. And so, it's really totally individual, but think about it, because what Judy said is also right. Like, there's this very consistent theme about, you do your day's meeting, they go, oh, you should really meet this person tomorrow. Or, I could set you up with a meeting over there in a day or two. And if you've got family there, I think a lot of people can feel constrained about they can't do these ad hoc things that pop up. And, it's such a common piece of feedback that they are some of the richest fellowship experiences that people have. In terms of when you travel, just if you are selected, you will find out kind of roughly September-ish this year. And then you've got about 15 months to travel. So you can travel from, I think it's November through to January. It'll be 27 in this case. No, what year are we in? 2028? Yeah. Yeah. So there's a 15-month window. And so you've got a little bit of time to get organised. And that's to give people flexibility about when they can reach out and get most contacts, the most sensible itinerary and things like that. The other one we get, and Judy, you touched on it a bit, is it the right moment in your life? Everyone's lives are busy and complicated and messy. Everyone's got, aged parents, young kids, pets, careers, PhDs, things that they're trying to manage. And so we really encourage you to think about, is this the best moment in your life to apply? Because your world won't stop. When you get home, your world's kept going. And we don't want you to kind of try and step out of your life, put everything on pause back here, because that's not how the world works. And so just think about it. What's the right time? And we've had lots of fellows tell us that they've waited a couple of years before they applied. Some people apply this year because they've been thinking about it for a while. Whatever your circumstances are will kind of dictate that for you. But just bear in mind, you've got to write your report when you get back. That is the one piece of accountability and that we absolutely insist on. And so what you don't want to do is get home exhilarated/exhausted, 12 weeks worth of personal life administration waiting for you, and then a report to write on top of it. So that's a really common question that we get. Another one that we get is, do I have to do the report? The answer is yes. We take the report in lots of different forms, podcasts, blogs, written reports. You can see what some of these look like on the website. Don't let the report be the thing that stops you applying, though. Like, there's lots of ways for you to communicate what you learned. And I know that's in particular for people who are in non-academic settings. We would just be horrified if we thought that that was the thing that stopped people having a go. And Judy talked about using social media. We love that. And so, depending on how in tune you are with TikTok or LinkedIn or Instagram, we would love that. The other question we get, Judy, and you might want to chat about, how did you identify your referees and how important are they? And I will tell you that we ask you to actually get them done 2 days before the application is closed. We find that that's actually that and the character limits are some of the most stressful things that we do. So you have to get them to us 48 hours before the application closes. So we take that stress off you and you can just focus that last 48 hours on fine tuning. But Judy, do you want to talk about your referees and how you selected them and what you thought was a good approach?
Yes, thank you, Chris. Unmute. Can you hear me? Yeah, great. Yeah, that's great. Like, it was really interesting when I mentioned that I first applied in 2017, and my you should have a personal referee and a professional referee. And the two amazing people I chose in 2017 were not appropriate when I applied 5 years later, because my whole life around it, my passion had changed. So it was pretty obvious to me who I had. Obviously, they were both sort of people of note that really backed me, and I knew that when I told them what I was doing and I showed them my application, my purpose, they went, "Oh, you'd be perfect at that," and they then brought their own passion. So I think for me, became obvious as I went through the preparation. I think this is where the whole thing about preparation for your application, before you even sit down and start filling in the spaces, think about all of those people and the ones that, and you might have a favourite one, but is that person really the right person to answer the questions that are posed in the application? So don't pick your favourite, pick the person who's really going to push through for you, because that really matters. And they also did it with such passion, and they did it straight away too, because they got that it was an important part of the process, and to get it in as soon as they could. So some of you might be very fortunate to have lots of people, but just really being discerning about the ones that really go, oh yeah, I'll do that. That's great. Yeah, and they were a very important part of the whole process.
Yeah, I think they really are important. The most compelling applications have really sensible referees. I will tell you, in previous rounds, I think people get very confused about if I pick someone very famous, for example, an ex-prime minister, that will be great. But it was clear that the ex-prime minister didn't really know this person very well. And so, of course, it didn't help. So, just think about who's going to help you present the most compelling case possible. I can see we're getting quite a few questions in the chat about, can you be paid while you're on your fellowship journey? So a couple of key things. If you are lucky enough to be in paid employment, you will have to tap into your leave. The fellowship is not a wage replacement subsidy. As I said in the beginning, it covers your travel, your accommodation, and reasonable costs. It's not about replacing your wage. So yes, you can be earning a salary in terms of you'll be drawing on your leave entitlements. We ask you, given the amount of money that we are investing in you, not to be doing your day jobs while you're overseas on the fellowship. We think that is a perfectly reasonable request. This is an intense experience. Now, I live in the real world, right? I get it. Someone might text you, you might check a quick email, but that's different to, oh, no, I told my boss I'm going to do this fellowship, but I'll be online every night and I'll be able to kind of do Zoom meetings and other things, and you will not have time. I cannot explain to you. Judy's nodding her head violently here. Go for it, Judy.
I think it's if you really immerse yourself in this fellowship, it's exhausting. It's amazing and exhilarating, but you just could not do your work as paid work as well. So you do have to take leave, and you're doing yourself a disservice, because this is such a unique life experience. You'll never, to be paid, to get funding to travel to these amazing places, to meet with people that are really going to lift you into another sphere of influence when you get home. You need to be fully focused. So I would just say, do not even think about your paid workplace. You just need to have a complete break, because it's not fair on yourself.
Yeah. And for those who are self-employed, I think it's genuinely an issue, right? We can't provide you the income that you will obviously not be earning. And so I think this is when it comes to what's the right moment and what planning and preparations have you got in place that might help you manage those circumstances. So I try and be really clear. I also noticed, and I think it's probably been answered by one of the team here, 100 fellowships roughly a year, split roughly on state proportions. So we tend to have pretty standard numbers by each year. So if you go on our website, have a look at our 2025 cohort, that'll give you a really good sense of how many and where they're from. The other thing I would just want to really highlight is people tend to get very excited with their itineraries and really want to jam pack them. I think what Judy was saying about scheduling some downtime is incredibly important. You can run on adrenaline for so long. But I think I was in the midst of saying, give yourself the best shot at success by not overscheduling yourself. But I guess I don't want to put the cart before the horse, right? You've got to be selected first. And that's kind of the focus of this information session. I can just see that there are still a few questions coming through. Are there any in particular that have got lots and lots of likes? There's a couple that are open. On the topic of exhaustion, I noted there is support for people with disability. If you have a medical condition, is there an opportunity to factor some extra rest days? Would this be considered? Yes, we would consider those sorts of things on a case-by-case basis. Judy, have you got any kind of, I mean, I'm happy to keep going if there are other questions, but I feel like we've answered, well, according to my team, we've answered 41 questions, which is pretty good. Oh, here we go. Here's one on sponsored fellowships and how are they different from non-sponsored fellowships? The answer is they're not. It's just that someone has generously donated to the trust, and so we have created basically a named sponsorship. How you would experience it as a fellow would be absolutely identical to just a generic fellowship. And we would talk you through any of those elements should you be successful in that regard. You might get to meet your sponsor, which is also a very lovely thing. So, yeah, don't get too worried about the sponsored fellowship.
Look, I just want to say in closing to all the people watching today, thank you for thinking about a Churchill Fellowship and thank you for registering for today's session. My area was public health as a volunteer. Like, I'm not an academic or anything else other than just a person who cares about this. So I really just don't think that don't underestimate your ability to convince the Churchill Trust that what you want to do is valid. I had that thought for about 5 minutes, but I got totally over myself. And you just think, what can you bring? What do you know and love that you'd be proud to stand up and speak about it and to change the lives of Australians. So if you've got something like that, please just apply. Please apply.
Great final pitch, Judy. You're taking the words right out of my mouth. Someone's just commented that they can't seem to find the sample application on our website. We'll just make sure that we pop that in the link to the follow-up email that we send out to everyone. Not having direct volunteer work won't count against you, but just remember it's a really competitive process. There are no allocations per stream. The best people across Australia are selected. So that means we get sort of clusters in some years around, I don't know, maybe domestic violence and the environment. In other years, it might be around AI. So there's no kind of hard split. You can apply for funding to have a translator if you need it in the countries that you might be going to. Referees will provide written referees comments. They are not interviewed per se. And you can elect to go out to a number of people to be your referee. Referee reports come to you and you choose the ones that you want to upload as part of your application. So you have quite a bit of control there. And we found from previous fellows that they thought that was quite good. Judy?
Yeah, just one more thing about the pitch, the 60-second video pitch.
Oh, yes.
Now, when I first applied in 2017, that wasn't included, but it is a thing now. And people do get very worried about that. So I'll just give you a tip. What I did was I actually typed up what I wanted to say and timed myself so I could memorize it. And it's really not a lot of time. So that might be one idea for people. The other thing is to have a prop. So say you're a cheese maker, or I'd written a book, so I was able to hold a book, or if you had done something, just have something that just helps you take the focus on yourself, because people don't like just, having their head in the video pitch. It stops at 59 seconds. So if you haven't timed it properly, it'll just cut out. So you can do it 450 times if you want to, but eventually you'll get it to 58 or 59 seconds and you think, that's it. So do people all struggle with that? But, you just have to practice it and learn your words. And as I said, have a prop or something
because I had seen a question come through about can you travel. Sorry, Judy, you froze just for a moment. That's good.
Yeah.
The video is something we get asked a lot about. I can see questions come through. Can I travel with children? The answer is, if you can convince us that you will not be doing child minding, this is a paid fellowship. it is not a paid holiday. And people have absolutely done it, and they have shown us the arrangements that they have put in place that mean that they have got suitable capacity to do their fellowship. And I also saw a question, can your family join you at the end for a holiday? And we would say that's actually probably the best model. Get them to come over at the end, because then you can have a proper debrief, a proper, holiday if that's what you want to do. There are some time limits on all of that. Of course, you'll be paying all of those costs. So just have a think about that. I can see we've got a question here about public servants and indeed some other people who have restrictions placed on what they can post online. We have worked with other fellows in the past where there are, in particular, national security and other restrictions in place, but we would seek for you to make sure that your employer knows, because what we don't want is for you to put in a great application, us to select you, and then you to come along and say, oh, now I can't do it, because that's really, you've just got to think about it from our point of view as well. The last one probably that I wanted to cover off, and I think it's been asked in the Q&A, but I'll just say your final interviews. In the bigger states, there'll be a 2-step interview process. You'll go through technical panels who are very focused on particular subject areas, and health and medicine's a big one. But the final interviews are all the final applicants. They are face-to-face and the dates are set. And so go online and have a look at those dates. If you will not be able to be in your state capital territory, and I know we've had people, for example, in Queanbeyan who want to come and interview in Canberra. We've had people in Ballina who want to go and interview in Brisbane. The answer is you have to go to the capital in your state and territory. The dates cannot be moved because the panels are volunteers. They come together, they block this time out in their diary a year in advance. The other key date that should you be successful in is we have a national onboarding. It's basically a 2-day, 1-day induction seminar, and it's held in Canberra in October, and it is mandatory to be here in person. We are making a significant financial investment in you. And last year, unfortunately, 5 people who were selected were unable to attend, and so therefore they could not undertake their fellowship. So when we talk about, is this the right year for you, really think about that. Anyway, I think we've covered a fair bit of ground. Yes, I think we can post a link to the interview dates, but it's all on our website. Yeah, so actually just go onto the website and find it. This is actually one of the really interesting parts of it. We're very familiar with the process and you aren't, but we also can't do your fellowship for you. So we need people to self-service as much as we can. We're a small charity, we're a small team, we're very happy to help, but where you can do things for yourself, we're going to ask you to. Okay. Judy, any final words of wisdom before we release people to their lunches?
No, the only thing was you mentioned the onboarding experience, and I think my year was the first year that was introduced, and I really thought it was an amazing night to come together with the other 99 people that had been chosen. It was really exhilarating to hear what other people are doing. So really do have a look at that date, and if you can't make it, look, you'll just have to put off till next year. But it's a fabulous night where you get a lot of ideas and support from the staff, and I thought it was a terrific initiative. And you make friends. I've got friends from people I met in 2024, so in Canberra. So yeah, definitely check that out and make sure you put it in your calendar that you go to that.
Yeah, and I just saw someone ask, Judy, can I have your, would you mind sharing your email? Look, I don't know, Judy can speak for herself, but we do have in states and territories, Churchill Fellow Alumni Associations. They are also on our website. There are many terrific fellows and those associations might be able to help you out. Talk to them, have a coffee with someone. They might be able to give you some kind of further guidance. I don't want to drown Judy in the 160 people on this chat, but the alumni associations are terrific. and really willing to share kind of their experience. I've never met a fellow who didn't love talking about their fellowship experience. And so I would really encourage you to get in touch if you are thinking about that.
Yes, I'll just say to Christine that if they look on the Churchill Trust website and they can Google Judy Ryan for my report, and you can actually message fellows through the system. So that could be one way of dealing with that.
Terrific. One person in the Q&A said that the dates are not on the website. I'll just get the team to double check that. We'll absolutely put them up there for you. All right. I'm going to say going, gone. Hopefully we have answered a lot of your questions. As I say, there's going to be a lot more of these sessions. They'll all be available online. And by all means, stay in touch with us. And we wish you all the very best as you contemplate whether this could be a really amazing point in your life and an amazing life opportunity. Thank you, Judy. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Bye.